For those of you who may not know who I am, I'm Derek Thomas, and I'm the senior minister at First Presbyterian Church in Columbia, South Carolina. And this video is actually intended for the members of our church. You just by happenstance may have come across it on our website. But this is really for our members at First Presbyterian Church. Normally in January, we would have a congregational meeting. We are a Presbyterian church, and we are governed by session. Session is the elders are the ones who make the day-to-day, month-to-month decisions as to the direction and course of ministry here at First Presbyterian Church. But there are occasions when the congregation has to make a vote. For example, when we call a minister, that's a congregational vote. We also have the congregation approve the budget. The congregation elects the treasurer of the church. There's also a meeting of that body, that organization that takes care of the real estate in legal terms of the church, and currently that is chaired by Joe Walker. The business part of our congregational meeting, normally we meet on a Wednesday evening, and there's a wonderful dinner, and 400 or 500 people are present, and we just can't do that in this season. So we came up with a compromise. The business part will take place, and by the time you're watching this, may already have taken place, but it's actually going to take place on Sunday after the 2 morning services and after the evening service, where some votes, congregational votes, have to take place, especially the vote on approving the budget, electing a treasurer, and electing a nominating committee to put forth candidates for the deacons and for the elders for next year, and for the remaining 4 years for the elders, and the remaining 3 years for the deacons. But there are other parts of the congregational meeting that, because they're taking place on Sunday, the meeting is going to have to be short, so we decided we would do it here. Typically, the senior minister gives a kind of State of the Union address, and I'll try and do that here. The State of the Union in 2020 was 2020. It was COVID. March the 15th, the first Sunday, we locked down, and I vividly have a memory of a conversation with our wonderful Chair of Administration, Lee Harvin, who will continue as chair in this coming year. I remember having a telephone conversation as I was driving up to Charlotte, saying under no circumstances should we close down, and then as I was driving back from Charlotte, telling him the very opposite, that I think we really do need to shut down. And the narrative then, as the narrative now, is for the sake of others, for the sake of our community. What if an outbreak of this disease took place here in Columbia, as it has in other cities? Mercifully, that has not happened. But if it had happened, and it's somehow, in some way, the church would be seen as the source of that and the catalyst of that, how could we lift up our heads in the city and proclaim the gospel? And so the unthinkable happened in mid-March, and we closed down. And we were closed down for around 15 weeks or so, and we began back up in some form or another in June of last year, and we've been continuing to expand slowly but surely and carefully ever since. The fact is that there are dear, dear, dear friends, members of First Presbyterian Church, and I may be talking to you right now, and you've not been back since March, and we all understand that. Because of where you are in life, this COVID-19 has possible serious ramifications if you were to catch it. The wonderful news is that as I'm recording this, many of our seniors have already received the first vaccine. My 92-year-old mother, who's been confined to her home for the last 5 years and lives alone, called me just a couple of days ago and said that she'd had her first vaccine. She'll have to wait longer in Britain than here in the States for her second one. Well, first of all, I just want to thank our staff and my fellow ministers, the team that is the ministry and administrative staff, 50, 60 people that the church employs, the sextons who do an incredibly wonderful job behind the scenes. And to thank them for their willingness. They have bent over backwards, they have been inventive, they've learned new skills, they've reached out. I am sure there are some that we have missed in this season, and our hearts break if that is so. But from where I sit as the senior minister, I could not be prouder of our staff, our interns, our sextons, our directors of ministry, my colleagues in ministry. We've done what we could to help and minister to you. Typically, I would give numbers of new members, membership generally. Our membership is fairly static. We're slightly up from where we were last year. We lost some. We had some transfers, as we normally do. Perhaps a few more transfers, which are probably COVID-related, people learning that they didn't really want because they couldn't travel the distance to church and have joined local churches, and they will be a source of blessing to those local churches. I think the good news is that in our current inquirers class, there are over 50 applicants for new membership. And in the middle of COVID, I think that's a wonderful blessing, and we are grateful to God. There were fewer baptisms in 2020 for obvious reasons. There will be a whole lot more, I suspect, in 2021. There will be a link provided on this site that you can access the financial report, a summary at least of the financial report. And the wonderful news of the financial report is in 2020 is that we almost, not quite, but we almost met our budget for last year. There were swings and roundabouts, but at the end of the day, we made a surplus of over $200,000, which is about what we've done for the last 10 years or so. And that's extraordinary. That's a testimony to God's faithfulness, but it's also a testimony to your faithfulness, and we are very thankful. That surplus has already been earmarked. We kind of expect it, and we kind of budget it in anticipation of it. But it's wonderful to have the confirmation that we are in such a place financially. One of the plus sides of 2020 is the online streaming and download and so on. And during 2020, from March, we're not actually talking about an entire year, we're just talking about a 9-month period from the time we locked down in the middle of March. YouTube, that is people who watch the services on Sunday, they either watch it live or they watch it maybe an hour later or they watch it during the week. Over 203,000 views during that period. Over 67,000 listenings to podcasts, and some of them stream the podcast, and some of them may have downloaded the podcast. In addition to all of that, there are figures of those who actually download the sermon. They don't watch it live, but they download it onto their devices and listen to it when they're walking or whatever. And again, that's an extra 165,000 downloads of sermons, reaching 35 different countries, including countries where it is very, very difficult to be publicly seen advocating Christianity. And I won't say any more than that. So the reach of our congregation goes beyond Colombia, and it goes beyond South Carolina, and it even goes beyond the United States in this technological era in which we live. It means that those of us who are frequently preaching here often have to think not only of the congregation that is before us, but also those who may listen to this sermon a week later, a month later, 6 months later, a year later. And that outreach, that evangelistic missionary outreach of our congregation is something to give thanks to God for. Well, once again, we long to see everyone back, and next year, God willing, we will have our typical congregational meeting on a Wednesday evening. At the end of this video, as we normally would in a congregational meeting, we would name the names of those who went home to glory in the course of the previous year. You would stand as I would read out these names, and then I would offer a prayer of thanksgiving for them. And these names, rather than me recite them here, these names will scroll on this video as soon as I have stopped speaking. Once again, thank you. Thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for the fellowship that is First Presbyterian Church in Columbia, South Carolina. The Lord bless you.